I learned this small coin purse. Here are two examples of this small zippered coin purse. And it was a demonstration at the Quilt Consortium by the woman that I mentioned, Pat Porter. I think she's with Lake to Lake Quilters Guild, and she showed us how to do this, and she was going to do a video, but I don't recall seeing anything about a video or even directions. I copied the directions as I was listening to her, and so I just wrote out my own directions. But it's a cool little coin purse, and it's really quite easy to do, so I thought this would be a good one to try. And I've written out step by step, hopefully, on your sheets so that you will understand what to do. And the first thing is you need a zipper, and I had to purchase a zipper. I thought I was full of zippers at my house, and I couldn't find any. So I purchased a bunch of zippers. And I don't want to advertise, but it begins with a W, and they were $1.47 a piece, and I thought that was not bad, but now Betty says that there's an Etsy that will give us many zippers for a much better price. So if we're interested, we will talk about that in the newsletter. And the other thing was that she had suggested to using interfacing and putting that on one side of the fabric. You need an inside and an outside fabric. So this is sort of fun because we have an interior fabric as well as an exterior fabric. And she suggested interfacing the outside fabric and then stitching around it to hold them together. Well, since I didn't have interfacing that I could use, I did have two fusibles. I had Heat and Bond Light, and I also had a Pellon product called Easy Steam 2, which is very much like Steam 2 brand name. And I thought, well, I could use these, and it turns out I like this method much better because now you are bonding the two together and there's no need to stitch around it to hold them together. So I think this is even better. And I don't feel, we can pass this one around. And we can pass this around as long as I get it back before the end of the demo. Because I don't think that it really is that stiff. And I'll pass this around too. This is Steam 2. And so the other one, here it is Heat and Bond Light. And does everybody here know how to use the fusible? Everybody knows, like when you're using a fusible, you're going to fuse two sides. So the first time you pull off a paper, you pull off one of the papers, and it allows you to use the one side, and you put that in position, and then you pull off the second paper and put the other one in position. And generally, when you do something like this, I fuse the whole thing and then I cut it out rather than trying to fuse three things all perfectly the same. So that's what I did. I cut that out, and I've put this out there in case anybody wants to see what the other side of a fusible looks like. Here's the paper that we would pull off. This again is the Steam 2, and so, it's the Heat and Bond Light, and then you would just iron it onto the next piece. So I left this on in case anybody wanted to see that, and I think most of us know how to do that. So after you have a fused fabric, and the sizes were the ones that Pat Porter suggested, they could be any size. You could make this larger, or probably not smaller, but larger for sure. And so you begin with a 5-inch wide by an 8-inch, I have to look at my notes, sorry. And yes, 5-inch wide, 8.5-inch long, and that makes this size. So that's a reasonable size for a coin purse. And I like it because people don't usually like to do zippers. And this is the easiest thing in the world to do as a zipper purse. So the first thing you do is you take your fabric that's already fused and you put it on, so the zipper is on top, and you make it even. I'm hopefully showing, you're making the zipper, one of the edges of the zipper, even with the top of the fabric. And you want to place it so that the zipper is right side down and the zipper pull is on your left. And then you're always gonna do the same thing. So the zipper pull is on my left, and you'll notice it's sticking out beyond. I'm not worried about the zipper pull because this is a 9-inch zipper, and she suggested a 7 will work, and you can see there's a lot of excess zipper, so it probably will, but she said the 9 was just easier to work with. So a 9-inch zipper sticking out beyond both ends, and this is gonna get cut off eventually. And you're just gonna cut it off with your scissors or your rotary cutter, it doesn't matter. So the first thing you do, with the zipper face down, pick a line on the zipper, and these aren't very obvious, the lines on this zipper, but usually zippers have a line to follow to sew. And I just did about 1/4 inch in. And once I did that, then the next step is to pull this up, put the zipper up so that the other part of the zipper and the fabric is going to turn down, okay? And then we're going to just top stitch along here. So this is step 1, which you can pass around. And step 2 is this, now top stitched on the fabric right below where the zipper is. And the next step is to pull up that next side, and this is my right side on here, and this is my wrong side on here. Not that it matters really, if they're pretty, you don't really care. But once I've had the top stitching finished over here, I'm bringing up the other end and putting that in place so that that also is aligned with the top edge of the other edge of the zipper. So we're just aligning that with the zipper. And the important thing is to remember not to let this be skewed, okay? We wanna make sure that you've got that nice and straight, and you might not think about that. So just pay attention to that. And then I flipped it over so that I could again see where I was on the zipper and stitch along the zipper again in about 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there's a pin in here, watch it, but this is gonna be your step number 2. So once that's done, then here's a little bit of the tricky part. We've got that zipper, we've got the 2 pieces. Now we need to top stitch that second part, right? We top stitched the first, but we could see it. Now we can't see it because you have your zipper and you have your fabric. So you unzip the zipper. Just unzip the zipper. I unzipped it all the way, and voila, you can see what you're working on. And consequently, I was able to top stitch that next side. Then the next step is zipping the zipper back up, but not all the way, because now we're gonna stitch the 2 sides, and we need an opening in order to turn it right side out. If you get the zipper too close to one end, it's hard to turn right side out. So really, make the opening larger than the closed part of the zipper, okay? So the next step is getting ready to stitch the 2 sides, and I suppose you could have the zipper on top, but you'll notice that the zipper is down a little bit. And also, if you like the idea of maybe turning this into something where you could put those little packages of Kleenex, you might want to put that right in the middle, and then you could pull out the Kleenexes. But in this case, coming down from the top, so there's your next step, coming down from the top about an inch seems to work. Again, making sure these edges are nice and straight, don't skew it at all. But this distance could be anything. This distance could really be anything. But an inch seemed to work for me. So once I've moved that so that it can be in this position, you want to make sure that the zipper is open, but the teeth are really close to each other, okay? So I pinned it. make sure that the teeth are as close to each other as you can get without being closed. And I just pinned both sides, and then I stitched in my 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. And then the next step, and we'll turn this back, I didn't do anything yet.
Quilters want to remember to backstitch.
Yes, yes. And you're doing, yes, thank you, Mary Ellen. And I did mention that, but forgot to say it. You want to backstitch beginning, ending, and you want to double stitch over the zipper. Okay, so when you have this in this position, this is now stitched. So I backstitched a couple of times over the zipper. I backstitched to begin, I backstitched to end, and I also did a zigzag stitch on the edges to keep it from fraying. So zigzag stitch to the edges. Now, you can do that before or after you cut off the zipper. See, you're cutting off the zipper. So this is cool. This is the easiest way to put a zipper in that I've ever done. And we don't need any of this. We just make sure that the zipping part of the zipper is in here someplace. And so you would cut off the zipper. I left it on so you could see it. Just cut off the zipper. And then once that's cut off, you then stitch, but I stitched before I cut it off. That didn't seem to be a problem. And again, we're turning it right side out and poking out the corners. And I used a crochet hook. You can use almost anything, but a crochet hook works pretty well because you don't want to poke something sharp, you know. Very often, actually, I like those skewers that you use for hors d'oeuvres. I have a whole, do you? Well, chopsticks work too. I have a whole package of those skewers that I just keep in my sewing room and just use them when I need to. So this gets turned out. You're poking it out in the corners, and we have cut off the zipper, remember? And then you are able, because it's right side out, to zip it closed. There you go. Isn't that cool? I mean, I really think it's the simplest little purse, and